Hello, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Natalie Orsling, and I'm an assistant director here at UChicago in Alumni Career Development. The term pivot has a few different meanings. You may know it as a term used in engineering and mechanics, maybe in sports, or in that one infamous Friends episode. Today, we are discussing it in relation to your career. You may be at a point where you're wondering how you can shift focus to a new idea, a new industry, or a new pathway, but there's a fear of failure holding you back. That is why we are excited to share today's session of the Young Professional Series, Pivoting for Fun and Profit, How to Learn from Failures and Build the Career You Want. We are joined today by Ethan Stanislawski. Ethan graduated from the college in 2008 before entering the world of writing, comedy, and storytelling. Now based in LA, Ethan's writing has been featured in several amazing publications, including The Village Voice, NPR, and our very own Chicago Maroon. He has performed in stand-up and sketch comedy at festivals across the country and wrote for the 2018 CBS Diversity Showcase. He is now working on a new project as the founder of Devera, which aims to connect content creation and content creators with producers and industry experts who are seeking undiscovered talent. He is going to talk through all of this and much more, so I won't go on for much longer. I will say we have saved some time at the end for questions, so please make use of the Q&A function throughout the presentation so we can answer your questions. With all that said, Ethan, I'm going to hand it over for you and let you get started.
Thanks, Natalie. I appreciate it. Hi, all. I am very happy to be here. I'm humbled that I was asked to do this. My imposter syndrome has been raging through the roof for the last week, but if I have experience in one thing, it's how to switch from something that isn't working to something that hopefully will. So I appreciate you attending, and I'm open for any Q&A. And if you want to reach out to me after this, I'm happy to discuss this with you as well. Natalie can provide that info if it's not readily available. So let's get started. Just a little bit about me. I graduated from the college, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. I was a section editor for the Chicago Maroon in the art section. I graduated University of Chicago wanting to be the theater critic for the New York Times. That was my role. I was a theater critic at the Maroon. I was very in that world. I was blogging like crazy about theater, which is not really a blog-happy world, but I was also writing about music and film and things like that. And there wasn't really a place for me in that world. Also, I graduated in 2008. It was a rough time for the media in general. And you may remember it was an even worse time for everyone with the economy. So graduated right into that. That wasn't fun. And I realized about within a year, arts criticism and journalism wasn't really for me. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. And so naturally, I went to grad school. That's what I did. When you graduate Chicago and you don't know what to do, odds are you're going to go to grad school. This is Indiana University, where I went for journalism. I was there for about a semester and a half, and it was a good time. I liked the students I was with. I liked professors. Bloomington's a great town, but grad school itself just wasn't for me. And before getting into grad school and going to grad school, I tried something that had been in the back of my mind my whole life. Never really was sure if I wanted to do it, but I just did it. I started going to stand-up open mics, and I was like, this is a lark. Let me see if this is something to do in like the few months when I don't really have much to do between going to grad school. And then unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to phrase it, I got the bug for it. And that became the next decade of my life, was pursuing stand-up comedy. I was later on a sketch team that was sort of very popular in Los Angeles. We had sold out shows for 3 years. The pandemic did what it did to a lot of live performance with that, but that was my life, doing the double life between working at a day job and working as a comedian and performer and writer at night. During the pandemic, I sort of was hitting a wall with comedy. And I was like, what should I do now that I can't perform live anyway? And I really am not sure what I want to do. I still perform every here and there. But while all this was happening, all this last decade of comedy, I was working at tech companies. I was working initially in like customer support, tech support. Then I moved on to customer success. Then I started managing teams and onboarding pretty big clients in kind of sectors, legal, finance, and all that. And I sort of, during the quarantine in about October 2020, I had this idea that hit me. What if I started a business of my own? What if I used my experience in tech and my experience in the entertainment industry and see if I can find a hole that's in the entertainment industry and use tech and data to sort of figure that out. So that's what I've done with Devera, which is my startup. Basically, as Natalie said, I'm trying to create a system that connects content creators who are already posting content on social media to producers, to casting people, to anyone looking for talents that has industry connections that can pay people. There's not really a system for that yet. So I'm very early on in the process. So I don't want to say like we're not, we're in user research, we're in the very early stages of fundraising. So it's not a perfect product, but if you have any questions about that, there's the website. I'll have my email at the end. But that's sort of where I'm at now. A lot of different phases in my life, but I am happy to go through the lessons I've learned, the lessons of what works, what doesn't work, and that's where we're sort of going to take it from here. So I've had a lot of times in my life where I'm like, I don't want to do this. That is very much a common pattern for me, especially in my early 20s, right out of Chicago. I was doing a lot of different things. In addition to arts journalism, I was doing marketing work, which was a nightmare for me. And I was miserable at every job I had in marketing. So that's the real sign that you're not going to be happy at a job, is if you just wake up every day wanting to be like, God damn it, why is this my life? You hate, if you're commuting to a job, which happens less now, you get on the subway, as I was in New York, or the L in Chicago, and you're just like, why am I doing this? I'm on this train and I don't have any motivation to do that. Even if you work remotely, if you wake up and you're like, Jesus, why am I even walking to this computer? I don't have any interest in this job. I don't want to do this. That's a sign that it's not for you. It's really just like active misery. If there's like I'm putting a note here, if there's ups and downs in a job, with every job, no matter if it's your dream job, there's going to be ups and downs. And if you can weather the storm of that, you're just like, oh man, that sucks, but whatever, I'll get through this. That's different than I am miserable all the time. And especially if there's a job where you're like, oh, I don't know if this is for me. It seems kind of weird, but whatever, it pays well and I need a job right now. And then you get there and within a couple of months, you realize quickly, oh God, everything I thought was wrong about this is that and then some. That's the case, you're not going to be happy, and it's probably trying to look for other options. Another reason to switch is if you're just not getting paid enough. If you're at a job that makes you miserable but it pays well, that's one thing. But even then, like my brother was a corporate lawyer and he was making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year and he was miserable every day of his life. So on one level, it doesn't really matter what you're making, as long as if you're miserable, it doesn't really matter if you're making however much. But if a lot of times, especially in this economy, you're not even making enough to justify that. One thing I've learned the hard way is no matter what job, even if you're salaried, even if you have benefits, even if the full works, you need to sort of think of things on an hourly basis. Like, what is my hourly rate here? And if my hourly rate is not enough for the level of experience I want, and if I'm miserable and I'm having this crappy hourly rate, is this enough to work with? Is my career going to progress in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? Like, is this what I want the path to be? And if it's a raging no, then it's time to pivot. So those are sort of the questions. Those are the lessons I've learned. And that's, if you don't know it, you'll know it when you know it. It's kind of like the love, but the opposite. It's like, if you know this is not what I want to do, it will be very clear to you very quickly. So you've decided you want to pivot. I don't know why I'm making this like I'm a salesperson. I'm not. If you know you want to pivot, then you know, and you have to. It's very clear to you, but you may not know when to pivot. And there's not very clear ways to do that. The opposite of clear. It can be very dicey. If you want to leave, you can be like, screw it, I'm going to leave right away. Or you come up with a plan. And a plan is always good when you're pivoting. Here's some situations where pivoting does make sense. And everything I'm going to say from now on is sort of, it's not set in stone, but it's just what your level of comfort is. If you're at a point where this is more comfortable for you, that's great. But if this seems like a little uneasy, or you want to say, Ethan's being cautious, too cautious for me, I want to go for it, that's fine too. But I just want to make sure this is the lessons I've learned, and you can take everything with a grain of salt. But one thing I really emphasize is if you have a year of savings in the bank, you can comfortably go for it. If you have like what you're going to spend for a year and you have that in your savings, you should feel comfortable enough. Some people say 3 months, especially if you're, or 6 months, especially if you're going freelance. But really, I would emphasize a year gives you flexibility, gives you comfort. If you were to not earn a dollar in this year, would this be worth it for you? Would you have terror for not having enough? Another thing to consider is it's not worth destroying your life for someday imagining a hypothetical big payoff. If you are fine living your life the way it is, and you don't have to like sacrifice things that you need for your life. Like, don't sacrifice food, don't sacrifice your car payments. You don't even sacrifice if you do something fun, like, you go golfing or you like to go to concerts. Like, don't sacrifice that just because you're switching to a business. Make sure that you will be covered. And if you are starting a new business, pay yourself a salary. Don't take a salary of $0. If you have a salary and you are earning money, don't cover your costs and not leave anything for yourself. You need to earn for the business you're creating. That's the goal in the long term, is to make yourself, is to have abundance and thrive. The other option is just to have family money. This seems like I'm joking, but it's not. You went to U Chicago. Not saying it's universal by any means, but people who go to U Chicago tend to come from a family income bracket. And if that's what you have, that's great. Don't if your relationship with your family and their money is, I can live off what they give me for a year, even more than that, use that. There's no reason not to. This is not a situation where you need to have shame or guilt. There's opportunities like that. Just to give you an example, like I said, I was section editor of the art section in the Chicago Maroon, and my co-editor for many years took an unpaid internship at Harper's Magazine, which is a very prominent magazine. And I sort of had the attitude, I'm like, screw it, unpaid internships are a scam. I want to earn on my own. So I'm going to take this crappy marketing job that I hate, but at least I'm earning on my own, and I'm not taking opportunities that will advance me more. I could have probably relied on my parents to help me out if I took an unpaid situation that would help out my career more, or an underpaying thing that would help my career more. But I had pride. You don't need to have pride. You don't need to have guilt. If this is something that you're going to be handed, use it. Also, another thing with that is connections. If you come from a family that maybe has some connections to the industry you're working with, use every resource you have. There's no reason to say, I'm going to earn this on my own and I don't need help. If you can get help, get the help. There's no time for shame. There's no time for guilt. Just go for it. Use that. If you have guilt over, I have opportunities other people have, then work towards giving other people opportunities, but don't deny the opportunities you already have. And that took me, I didn't learn that until very late. And by that point, it was probably too late to use that, but that's fine. That's a lesson I've learned. And if you have these connections, and not everyone does, I understand, go for it. When not to pivot is if you don't have a plan. Like I said earlier, if you have no plan, if you're like vague, you're waiting for a payoff someday, like I did when I started doing comedy, I was like, well, I'm going to not earn money consistently. I'm going to be broke a lot of times. I'm going to spend money on festivals and buying drinks for other comics at bars and just doing this networking, which was very ambiguous. But someday I'll hit my big break and I'll get a check for $1 million and everything will be fine. That's not a plan. You need something that's a little more substantial. Break down your costs, break down what you're going to be earning. And if you are spending money, see what it will get you. Set a dollar value to what the opportunity you will get, even if it's theoretical, even if it's pulling out of a hat. Have some kind of plan for that. If you're expecting a big payday and you don't have a clear line to that payday, odds are it's not going to happen. Also, if you're in debt, if you're in a lot of debt, that's a dicey factor. If you have a family, a partner, and kids, that's things to consider as well. I mean, if you're younger, this seems like a little reckless, and that seems less of an issue, but it's going to be an issue at some point. You should figure out early on, do I want to get married and have kids? Am I fine not having that? If you didn't earn any money, would your family be okay with that? Could you still pay for your cost and your dependents and the people in your life? That's something that you really have to consider. And if this is something you want in your life, make sure you're not getting yourself into a hole that will take you years, your 30s, your 40s to get out of. That's really important, and I really want to emphasize that because it's not a whim and a dream. It just won't work. It has to be more substantial than that. So there's a few ways to do this. There's times, time to be born, a time to die, and all that. But there's times when you want to just play it cool and play it cautious, and you just get your feet wet and not go for it too badly. But there's times when you need to venture out, and there's situations where that makes more sense. So I'm going to go into this. One thing I was given advice for, and I will preach this from the rafters. Like, one of the things that really helps me out when I started my business, when I write, when I do anything creative, and I get intimidated by it, is 10 minutes a day. If you are starting a venture and you starting a writing project, starting a business, anything like that, work on it 10 minutes a day. It sounds like not a lot. I understand you can work more than that if you want. But if you spend 10 minutes a day on advancing your career, advancing your vision for what your career wants to be, you will be way, way more productive than you can ever imagine. If you like, well, I'm busy during the week, but I'm going to spend the weekend with like an 8-hour marathon session working on my business, working on my project, whatever it is, you're not going to do it. You're going to be too exhausted through the week, and you just won't get it done. And you will want to just chill out and veg out, which is totally fine. But if you work on your business 10 minutes a day, when you get home from work, when you have a break, whatever it is, you will make incredible progress fast. And it seems like it's not a lot, but it's so much, and it really is helpful. Other things you can do when you're getting started and you just want to, get things off your feet, just develop a plan. It doesn't have to be a full-fledged business plan, but it can be. And having more details on what you are working towards, the better. If you want to start a business, you want to create a project of any kind, ask for a few opinions from people you trust. If it's, you can have a friend who's like your wildest friend, and is like, we'll go on risks and take major life events and we'll change it up. Ask them, because they're gonna have an opinion. And then ask your most cautious friend or the most cautious person you know in this line of work. So get as many extreme opinions as you possibly can, and then just find someone who's done before. It's always great to find a mentor, and just have these three support networks built up. Odds are you're going to get more information. You're going to have a lot more clarity on what you're looking for. It's just awesome to do that. And then make sure your family is on board. That is an important thing. Like I said that earlier, when you're getting started, if they're not comfortable with what you're doing, you can always adjust based on what they're doing. It's not like your family says, at least if you're in a healthy family situation, not like they say, don't do that, you're going to kill us, it's going to be a miserable situation. If they say, well, I'm very uncomfortable about the money and what's going to happen, or even if the other end, they say, I'm happy with you doing whatever you need, we can get through this together, just listen to them. Because that's going to determine, and that's not just for your partner or kids, that's for your parents, that's for people who are very important to you in your life. So that's just something, siblings and all that. So just make sure that's the case. And these are all good things to have. You can do this very slowly while you get started. There are times where taking a risk is a better idea. Those are situations where there's a limited window of opportunity. You get a lead for a really strong opportunity. That may change you. If that's the case, you can make sacrifices to other things to go for that window of time. If you have a limited time, if you have made a connection and you're like, this person's perfect for what I'm looking for, you can jump on it. Don't wait until your business is like a little more developed to talk to someone who can help you develop it or your career. Go for it. If this sounds like this is perfect, this person's what I need, you can use them. And like I said, any connections you have are valid. If you're like, well, I'm saying this, but I don't know if they necessarily are ready for me, it's not developed, they may look alienated, I may alienate them. What if they say screw you and walk away? Don't worry about that. You have a business idea. As long as you have humility and honesty and you approach it like yourself, that will be fine. you will be fine. You won't burn a bridge by saying, here's a thing I'm looking for. Is this something you can help me with? That is a totally honest question. And if they're like, screw you, that's on them. So don't worry about that. Use referrals. So don't necessarily think if this person isn't able to help me, that's the end of the line. Use any, they may know someone who can help you out. If they're like, I can help you out a little, but this person's a better person to talk to them and don't wait. You can go for it. Another thing I call this the coin flip method. A lot of people figured out college decisions this way, which is if you're like, I want to go for this, I don't know if I want to go for this, I'm not sure. You can always just flip a coin, and whatever you get, if it says yes, if it says no, listen to your gut. And if you're like, if you get a heads for going for this opportunity, and you're like, I don't know, I got this heads, then it's a sign that maybe it's not the right opportunity. If you get tails, and it's like, don't go for this opportunity, and you're like, no, but I really want to. This looks great. That's your gut saying that. So you can listen, you can leave it to a coin toss, but then listen to your judgment based on that. It's a simple method. It's kind of dumb, but it's worked for me consistently. And then with social media, if you're comfortable putting your stuff out there, congrats, you have a business, you have a project you're working on. If you think it's ready for that, that's an opportunity to take any connections you have, take the leads. Basically, the way you think about it is, if I put this on Facebook, on Twitter, and Instagram, would it get the results I want? Am I ready for that? And if you are, go for that. Even if you're not, if even you're like 80% ready for that, it's still starting out. So go for that opportunity. Ask for jobs, ask for connections in the industry. It's not a problem to do that. Like I said, it's not a shameful thing to ask for help and use the connections that you may already have. If you don't, sometimes you do it and it doesn't work out. That's happened to me a lot. I've done a lot of things and realized this is not for me. This didn't go the way I wanted to. This project fell apart. This project shelved forever. This personality just didn't work with me. It can be very frustrating. I know it can. It can be incredibly frustrating to have this opportunity that you spend months, years even working on, and then have it lead to nowhere. And that seems like you can get really despondent that way. I definitely have at points. But there's no failure that doesn't come with a lesson. The word failure is fine. It sounds much more negative than it is, but any experience you have that you learn from that teaches you something. Anything you've learned that doesn't make sense for you, you can analyze, all right, that didn't make sense for me. Why? It's because I didn't want to go this way. This opportunity just didn't make sense for me. When I worked in this well, I wasn't happy. I have these strengths, I have these weaknesses. Even though it didn't work out, these are the strengths, and I can work with those strengths that I have. Every experience you have, even if it doesn't work out, it matters and it teaches you something. So when something doesn't work out, don't treat it like it's the end of the world. What am I going to do with my life? I've screwed up. It's irrevocable. Everything is repairable if you just learn from that. And to give you an example, I dropped out of grad school, like I said, after a semester and a half. I got my wonderful degree from University of Chicago, and Indiana has a great journalism program. It just wasn't for me. I had some personal stuff that I also had to deal with, but I also just wasn't feeling grad school. So part of me is like, I made this huge commitment, both in terms of my life. I moved there financially. I put a lot of money into this, and it's not paying off. But sort of by chance, in Bloomington, Indiana, there's a comedy club called the Comedy Attic, which was an incredible club. If you listen to any comedy podcast, they will sing the praises of this club. Every comic was performing there. It's very popular. And like I said, I was already starting to do a little bit of stand-up before I went there. And once I found the Comedy Attic in this town, I'm from New York, I went to college in Chicago, Bloomington, Indiana was not on my radar. And then I went there, fell in love with this club, fell in love with showing me what stand-up can be. And that turned my life around for the next decade. Like I said, you don't know what's going to come. So even if you take this opportunity, even if it isn't for you, you will get something out of that. And it may not be what you expect, but it's always great to learn. Now here's the positive side, pivoting in the way that is successful for you. Are you earning enough to get by? Like I said, if you're making hundreds of $1,000s and you're miserable, is it better than making $80,000 but having the life you want to have? Are you not afraid of where things are? Are things on track? It may take longer than you want, to go this way. But if you're on track, if you're earning enough money to live off of, if you're not afraid of what the future is going to be, if you don't wake up every day hating your life, oh, congrats, you've pivoted and you've done it the way you want it to. That's really fine. If you don't have to earn $1 million yet, you can if things keep going on the path you want. It's really about the goals you want to set for yourself and how close are you to achieving them. And even on the path there, it doesn't, like, I feel like I'm at a point now where I'm more comfortable with my career than I've ever been in my entire life. My business is not earning money yet. It's just getting started. I have a 9 to 5 that earns me enough money to live off of. And when I don't have the opportunity, if work gets too busy, I work 10 minutes a day on my business. That's great. I'm in a happy place in my life. I'm happy with my partner. Like, things are really wonderful in my life right now. And that's because, and I'm not earning the amount of money I hope to earn someday, but I'm happy. And that's what matters. I've pivoted a lot. I'm in a really good place right now, even though I'm not in a perfect place, not where I see it being. I'm on the path there. So if you have pivoted, if you're happy with how things are, and you are on the path and you are in a successful pivot, there's a few things you can still do to make it happen, make things better. Don't, there's ups and downs in your career, in your personal life, and they often don't go together. But there's ways to sustain this kind of success even after you've pivoted. If, like I said, if things are on track with your plan, is there any way you can accelerate it? If you want to if you're on that path and you want to take a few more risks, take a little bit more time to work on it, then that's great. Think about ways you can do that. Think about ways you can develop your business, develop your career. And when I say business, I don't mean like founding a business, founding a startup. If you're an actor, if you're a writer, if you're a creative person, or if you're just working, you have a side business selling things on Etsy, that's a business. Think of yourself as a business. I didn't put this as a note, but that's really important. No matter what you're doing, you are your own entity. You are an asset, and use your skills for that. So it's not just like starting an LLC or anything like that. It's really what you're contributing and what you feel comfortable contributing and what you think you're worth. If you think you're earning not enough for what you think you're worth, can you earn more? What would that consist of? Do you need to ask your job for a raise? That's a whole other seminar, but that's something Natalie can help you out with. But there's ways to do that. And if you want to start earning from side projects, or your business feels like, if you do own a business, you feel like you can generate more revenue, think of ways to do that. Is your personal life intact? Are you sleeping? There's, like I said, there's ups and downs for your business and your career and your personal life. More often than not, they don't go together. Sometimes your personal life's in a great place. You're happy with your partner. You're happy with your friends. Your life's really going the direction you want on that front. But your work is a mess and you're not happy with your work. You're not happy with what you're earning. It can go the other way too. You can be earning well, earning a lot, and you're single, you're lonely, your relationship with your partner is not working out, and they're often related. Sometimes neither are working. And that's fine too. If you will get through that, just taking the work and the steps and putting the effort in to do that. One thing I want to really emphasize is we've talked a lot, and you'll see this on every LinkedIn, every time you log into LinkedIn, you'll see this hustle culture. I hate hustle culture, all right? I think the whole goal of this is to work 8 hours a day and have enough to live off of and thrive. If you are destroying your life, if you're destroying your health, if you're throwing things away and you feel like that's a necessity for the career you're living, that's not good. I don't care if you're earning what you want. I don't care if you're earning on track. I don't care if you're working that. If you're working 20 hours a day for your business and not taking care of yourself, even if things are going well with your partner or your personal life, even their understanding, don't destroy yourself. I feel like that's a thing people do when they're younger and they have more energy. They will throw things away in their personal life to get where they want to go in their career. Don't do that. You will be fine if you are working at regular hours at a pace you're comfortable with. Just, it may take a little longer. Things may come up where it will be quicker than you think, but take care of yourself. None of this is worth destroying your body. You are your business, but your business is not you. If the whole point of being successful, thriving is to get a life that you want. That's on your deathbed. You're going to want to talk about your things that are going well in your personal life. No one's going to care about your business and your deathbed. That's sort of the way to think about it. It's a little grim, but I think that's a really important thing to emphasize is that you need to be okay health-wise, mental health-wise, physical health-wise. And if you're not, eventually things are going to fall apart with your professional life because it's just not sustainable to live that way. The last point I want to hit is a big question I hear a lot, grad school. Grad school is a tricky thing. I'm not going to say don't go to grad school. I've heard several people when I was a student at Chicago say it's not worth going to grad school. My dad's a professor. He's very opinionated on when it makes sense to go to grad school, when it doesn't. I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying don't go to grad school. Just know what you're getting into if you decide to go to grad school. Your grad school is not there to learn. It's not there like I did when you don't know what to do with your life. It's there to advance your career. And it's there, the money you're putting into it needs to pay off. It's not, you don't want to be in student loans for the rest of your life. You don't want to spend your life, even if you don't have student loans, you don't want to spend your life on this huge undertaking that will take, have you move to a weird place, that will have you sort of get out of your element, take over your life. You don't want to do that if it's not going to pay off. Sometimes, especially I feel like in STEM work, there's options for your job to sponsor you or like give you career. You say this will benefit me for career development. If that's the case, think it's a much better idea to go to grad school. If you are making good money, but you want to make a lot more money, and your job says if you get a master's, you get a doctorate, this will help you out, listen to them. And that even if that job doesn't work out, you have this on your resume and it will look great. That's a great opportunity to grad school. But again, if you're like, I don't know what to do, but maybe this grad school degree will help me out, it's not going to be worth it. It's not going to be worth it given what you're spending money on. And I just think it's just very important to do that. And PhDs, a lot of times masters, especially in STEM, are usually super useful. PhDs can get you work, but know that in a lot of cases, you're going to be overqualified if you have a PhD. So if you're not working in an industry, but you have this PhD that shows an expert in your industry, it's going to be less important than having job experience. So just make sure if you're getting a doctorate that you know the risks getting into that and you think it's worth it. Like I said at the very beginning, it really depends on what you're comfortable with and what level of risk and financial commitment you're willing to take. So there's no clear answer to when it does and doesn't make sense to go to grad school. I would just be very careful if you do make that decision. So that's it. That's really my presentation. I know I ran a little shorter than I thought. I sort of had 30 or 40 minutes in mind for this, but I'm really happy. I'm really excited for your questions. I would love to hear everything you say and open up to anything I can help out with. So I'll turn it back to Natalie.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Ethan. Trust me, we have plenty of time to ask questions. So if you guys have any you want to submit in the question and answer section, I do have some that were submitted beforehand in your registration. So we'll start off with those. And the first one I think is a really great point about experience. So say you're trying to break into an industry where you have little to no experience, or at least maybe not the experience that employers are looking for. How do you make that first initial break-in and try to stand out amongst recruiters or companies that may kind of brush you off when they see what your resume says?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It really depends on sort of how far you are from how far the thing you're trying to pivot to is from where you are. If you are a dancer and you want to move into corporate finance, there's a few more steps you would have to take there to get there. But let's say you're a dancer, you want to go to corporate finance, but you've worked as a day job in an architecture firm, for instance. You've handled bills, you've handled money, you know what that is, and just emphasize your strengths. There's no experience, no award or anything like that. That's too small for that kind of situation. You may say, well, I won this silly award at Chicago. It was like within this department. It wouldn't really matter. It matters. Put it on there. Every single thing you've done in your life, like I said, matters. So if it's like a bigger transition like that, sort of a out of left field transition, there's a few more steps you have to take, but you can spin anything into gold. So I think it's fine to start that way. just make sure you know why you want. It's not like you're switching to something for no reason. You have a reason. So if you're really motivated and you have any kind of experience or accomplishments that are at any way possibly related to this, emphasize those, and more often than not, I think it will work out.
Can you give any advice kind of on how you would do the emphasizing? So it's kind of enough to say like, oh, I really want to do this, or I have these transferable skills, but what's your advice on like how exactly to go about emphasizing those in a way that, is helpful in trying to make that connection?
Yeah, I think that can be really tough at points, but it is kind of thing where as someone who has worked in the entertainment industry, I have a resume for, like, for instance, for years and years and years, I edited short films and videos, and then I edited a pilot and things like that. I have no formal training in editing film, digitally, anything. I did not take that at UChicago. I was not paid for that in any context. But I said, this is something that seems cool to me. I did that. Also, you can just do things on your own that are related to that. Do some research. If you're want to work on something, do some work on your own and just see if this makes sense. You don't have to be hired by someone to do that kind of work. If you want to take a small certification towards what you're working on, even if it's like a webinar for like a company that you don't know if they're legitimate, put that on your resume. It's a conversation starter, and it may take time, but it just is emphasizing what your strengths are, why you want to do this, and any steps you take towards that are very valuable.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I think the kind of searching out on your own and taking advantage of things that may be out there that aren't the typical path or typical next steps is a great advice. So what if you're trying to pivot, you're trying to make this new career move and it's not working out yet, or it's taking maybe a little bit longer than you had anticipated? How do you stay motivated, energized, and kind of keep on this new path and not let it bring you down that it's not working as fast as you'd hoped?
Yeah, that can be really tough. I think it helps when you go on this path to know that this could take time. And when you are making a plan to pivot, understand that this can take time, and however long you anticipate this taking, odds are it's going to take longer than that. So like I said at the beginning, it's really what you're comfortable with. And if this is something you want to do, and it's frustrating, I've been there. Things are like, why am I pursuing comedy? This isn't working out. I'm not getting booked the place I want to book. I'm not getting paid for the level I want to get paid. If that could take time, and it may not come, eventually, but it's really about your comfortable level, the level you are motivated for this, and the level you plan for things going a certain way, will influence how willing you are to take the lumps that come with switching to a new industry. And I'll be honest, some industries, the entertainment industry, the media industry, there's some inherent problems in those industries. They can be really messy and kind of screwed up and not morally sound when they handle that. Even if you take an opportunity, they may treat you like crap. They may pay you like crap. Know that going into that, and understand that there's some kind of things that will come with that. But if this is something you want to do, and this is something that you are motivated, be patient. And I'm generally trying to be more patient in my life. I was not a patient person as a child or even as a young adult, which may be why I pivoted so much. But just it's about what you're comfortable with, how motivated you are, and how much you planned on things. The more planning you have, the better, but things are almost never going to go according to plan. When they do, it's kind of weird. I'm like, this plan to move to Los Angeles worked out for me. Like, I'm set up here. I did not expect that to go well, but I planned for 6 months to move here when I moved here 9 years ago. So things will change. It's just a matter of how much you're willing to plow through.
Awesome. And can you talk a little bit, I guess, in someone who is in the middle of a pivot, in the middle of kind of starting your own venture, what was that process like for you? Kind of, have you had moments where it's been a struggle to taking too long, it's not going the way you thought, and like, kind of, how have you used some of these skills and developed them as you've kind of taken on your own new venture?
Yeah, I think it's really about not expecting it to come overnight and being protected while you're doing this. There's times when I've been like, I'm working on this for hours. I'm in the zone. I can't stop. I'm making a lot of headway. I'm making some connections. This fundraising opportunity seems like it's going to really work out. And whether or not it does, I'm pushing for it. There's times where, it's not my full-time job to do this at this time. I'm in the process of getting it there. But it is something where I've been points where I'm like, I'm busy with work. Things in my life are exhausting. I just don't have the energy for this. And that's fine too. If your pivot isn't your job yet, you don't have to treat it like it's an overnight thing. The harder generally the more time you put into it, the better. But like I said, 10 minutes a day will just help you out, and it will give you more options than you think it will. So just take a little bit of time. And even if you're like, oh, this thing I've been putting off forever, I'm working on it, but it's just taking more time than I thought. You're working on it. You're still on the path you want to be on. And then if your path, you can always change plans, even within a pivot. Like, you don't have to say, oh, I thought I was going to be this, but like I thought I was going to be an actor, but my writing is getting more traction, or vice versa. But I'm still in the entertainment industry. I'm still on a creative path. That's fine. Just you can adjust it accordingly based on that, knowing what your strengths are. And if it's still in the line of what you want to do with your life, that's all the more to you.
Awesome. And you talked a little bit too about sort of the idea of not overworking yourself, or not letting yourself kind of reach the point where you're putting in so many hours and giving yourself burnout. So what is your advice if you are trying to make this pivot, but you also need some time off and a break for maybe a mental refresh before you jump into the next, idea, or jump into the next part of the project? Do you have any kind of advice on how to navigate that break?
Yeah, take a vacation. Honestly, if you are at a point where you're like, I'm switching jobs, I'm in the place where I can afford this, I can do this financially, I'm ready to go for it. I'm just scared and I'm exhausted from this line of work that made me unhappy. You can take a week, you can take 2 weeks before you go for it. And if you're on vacation, you're on vacation. You don't have to work. That's the definition of vacation, is that I am off work. So if you want to take a week or two before and you will be refreshed when you do that. Trust me, when you take time off and you don't think about work for a week or so, you'll come back and you will have a lot more energy to dedicate that. I know it's scary when you're like, oh, I'm just, flipping the switch and going for that, and now I have to wait a week. But trust me, don't think about it. Take a week off. Even if you are successful, you'll want to take a week off at points anyway. So just refresh. You don't have to, nothing's going to come overnight in this front. So don't worry about that. Just be in the best place for yourself, mentally, physically, where you need to be.
Awesome. And kind of talking about this, how do you make sure that a fear of failure, or a fear of things not working out will hold you back? How do you navigate, kind of breaching that fear, breaching that worry that something's going to hold you back, and just taking the plunge and not being afraid that, there may be a no, or there may be a stop sign at the end of that, and just going for it no matter what?
Have faith in yourself. That may come. There's most things don't work way more than they do. However many percentage of businesses fail, how many people in the creative world don't make it, it's more likely than not that it will. But even if the venture you want to do doesn't work out, you will not be a failure. I wanted to be the most successful stand-up comedian in the world. I am not, but I got a lot out of it. I learned a lot. I grew a lot as a person, and that's fine. I didn't make it as a stand-up comedian the way I wanted to, or at least haven't yet at this point in my career. But I don't consider what I did a failure. I went for it. I learned a lot, and I tried. If I had spent my life in a marketing job, or in a PhD track, and was like, I could have done this, I could have gone this way, I could have moved here, I could have done this, what would I have done? What could I have done? It's worse to be 40 and not in the career you want to be than to be 35 and it hasn't worked out, but you can change, but you tried it. You learned the lesson from that. You don't want to be caught at a point later in your life where you wonder what if. It's better to regret what didn't work out than to regret what you could have done and didn't do. So I get it. Fear of failure is intense. I deal with that a lot, but know that failure, if you go for it, is better than failure by not going for it. If you're going to go for it, you have to try anyway. So
awesome. And kind of, what is your advice for people who are maybe mid-career, they want to make a pivot, but they are still having to hold on to that full-time job for stability, and to make sure that, you know, they have some time and some money and some energy built up before they make their pivot to be successful. What is your advice for sort of like a pivot while also kind of staying in the stable career?
Yeah, I'm sort of there right now. I totally get that. It's really just a matter of knowing what you're getting out of your current job and being accepting of that. So like if you're in a job that is like it's boring, I'm not inspired, I'm not really looking for it. If you're putting money in the bank and you are if you're safe, you have health insurance and you're covered, the more money you have in the bank, like I said earlier, will help you pivot. But just know that like I said, everything takes time. You don't have, it shouldn't be like, screw this, I'm motivated more to go there. It should be like, be grateful that you are working and that you are stable and consistent, but also know that what you want out of this. Like if you want a job to put money in the bank, to have savings while you eventually go out on your own thing, even if it takes a few years, you are in a great place. You are earning, you are putting money in the bank, and eventually you will be able to go out and do your own thing. Great. Awesome. That is a great place to be. Don't think that, I understand, like if you're working at something you don't really care about or not inspired by for 8 hours of your day, that can be a lot. But no, just keep in mind every day to some extent what you're grateful for with your current job before you switch to what you want to do eventually.
Awesome. And you also talked about finding advice for people who are getting advice from people maybe who are already in the industry and can tell you if this is a great idea, or maybe one that you need to work some more on and cultivate some more. So what is your advice on finding information or people to connect with in careers that or pathways that you're interested in, but kind of need some advice and need some support?
Mm-hmm. Well, odds are, if you are the industry you want to pivot to, odds are you're going to want to pivot there because you've seen someone else do that or work in that world, and it looks great. And it could be someone you've seen in general, like overall in the world, or someone you know. Probably more often than not, it's going to be someone you know. So even if it's that one person that you're like, oh, that person works in the world I want to work in, and I knew them in college, I've known them from whatever context I know them in, as friends, whatever. Um, Feel free to use that connection, even if it's a little like, there's been times where I'm like, you're my friends, but I'm talking to you in this career way. I feel a little dirty, but that's fine. It's actually better if you have a good relationship with someone completely independently. If you feel like you're not milking someone, they'll enjoy that more. If you just are asking, you have a good rapport with someone, you're asking general advice, or even if you're just talking to your friends who are sort of may know someone in this world, that's great too. Like I said, any opportunity you can, even if it seems small, even if it's tangentially related to what you want to do, odds are they'll know someone who is doing what you want to do, and they will be able to link you there. So even if it's like third degree, fourth degree connection, just work for it. Again, you can be casual about it, just be yourself, and that will work out. And you'll be surprised how many doors that opens up.
Awesome. And you've also talked about sort of walking the line of having a great idea and the ambition to go after that, and making sure that the changes you're making are okay with your family and friends, the relationships you have. How do you balance that? How do you kind of not let maybe their sort of fears or opinions hold you back, but then also not let your ambition or goals take over those relationships?
Yeah, I think it's important. I sort of emphasized earlier, making sure that your family and your friends are comfortable with what you're doing. But at the same time, you're your own person. Their opinions are influential and important, but they are not the final word. So I think it's really important to think, this is something I want to do. I know I want to do this, but I need to be safe with the people I'm safe with. Honestly, more often than not, the people who are important to you in your life will understand why you want to make this pivot. They don't want you to be unhappy at your current place. They want you to be happy and content with where your career is going. And if there's a fine line between just concerns and misgivings, and being like, absolutely not, or I need this if you're going to do this. Like when I told my mom in a very clear way when I was like just out of grad school that I'm like, I know I commit to grad school, but comedy is what I want to do, and this is what I want to give my life to, and I want to see where this goes. The first thing she said was, "You're going to need a plan B." And I was furious at the time because I was like, I poured my heart out. This is what I want to be. but she wants to know what I have to do. But my mom is a very loving, caring person. She didn't say that out of denying me, out of maliciousness. She just wanted to make sure I was safe. More often than not, your friends and family just want you to be safe. So don't take it personally if they express concerns. And more often than not, they're going to understand why you want to do this. They're going to understand that you're an ambitious, creative person. And if there's a hard no, even if they're like that, understand, like I said at the beginning of this, you are your own person. So you know what's best for you more than anyone else. Yeah.
Awesome. And you've also, I think, talked a little bit about the working in both the corporate and the creative worlds. So can you kind of give some general like pros and cons of both worlds if someone is maybe in the corporate world and wants to enter sort of a more creative writing, comedy, art world, or vice versa, if they are in that world and kind of want to enter the corporate world? What are the pros and cons of each?
Yeah, the corporate world has a bigger safety net. So even if you are in a job where you're like, I'm bored, I'm not inspired, I'm not happy, I wish I could be doing more, you still are earning. You're still earning a living. You're still hopefully getting benefits, and you're still able to live a stable life. And that's the way to work. If you're working at a hot startup that's like, going crazy, but then falls apart within a year, is that better than being in a place where you're bored but you're stable? Boring is not bad necessarily. It doesn't have to be. Boring is fine. And that's one of the benefits of working in a corporate job. Even if you want to switch to a creative job, you're spending 8 hours of your day at a place. Enjoy that place as much as possible. And if you're at a point where you're like, I'm in this creative world, it's hell thrown at my door every day, it's complete chaos, I'm in a storm every day. At the same time, odds are you're having more fun. If you're working at like spreadsheets all day and you are doing wild, fun, outlandish comedy or whatever performance at night, appreciate that you have that opportunity. It's not everyone in the world who gets to do that. And it's really an expression of who you are. So just emphasize when you do this creative thing, don't feel like you have to follow a pattern that someone else set for you. Go where you're comfortable, go where you can be yourself. And that's not always possible in the corporate world, to really be yourself and show your flair in the way you wanted to as a human being. Yeah.
Awesome. And I think we have one question that's kind of a bit more specific about they're making a career pivot from like a business analyst to a media creative type of role. And their main development is an approval for a book project on Kickstarter, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way to sort of to speed up the journey, and maybe, especially if you're waiting on something like a Kickstarter, you're waiting on other people to kind of to join in and support? Is there a way to speed up your journey, or kickstart your journey as soon as you can, when you kind of the momentum is with you and you're excited about it?
Yeah, I think I'm normally someone was very all over the place on social media. I was on it several hours a day. I'm on it less now just because on some level, I think it's toxic and I don't think it's great for the world. On the other hand, it is a great resource if you're trying to promote yourself. So if you are at a point where you can post, if you have a Kickstarter like that, Kickstarter is not the end all be all, but if you can show someone, hey, I'm creating this book, I've raised this amount of money in this time, you can either emphasize more the Kickstarter, or you can go to your network, your professional network, and say, this is what I'm working on. This is how I'm really developing. Can you help me out, either raise money or give me advice on my book, how I'm approaching it, how I can market it? There's no silver bullet on how to handle this. There's several ways to go about it. So don't feel like you're stuck in one path and that's the end all be all. You never want to have all your eggs in one basket. That's just generally not best practice, because if that basket, has a hole in it, then you're back to square one. But if you're working on something, to just always, think of ways you can go that are not necessarily the way you're doing it currently. And there's always options. There's always options that you are out there that you may not realize are out there. Even if they seem frivolous or sparse, they're going to help you out. If you just, one of them is going to help you out in some way. So yeah, that's great. Congrats on having the inspiration to create a Kickstarter and get it going.
Awesome. And I think one final question. So say you have taken the leap, you've done a new venture, you've kind of made this pivot you wanted to, and it has not gone well, and there has been a failure. How do you sort of come back from that? How do you decide, you know what, my failure doesn't define me, I'm going to take the next step and continue on with my inspiration and, you know, try the next thing?
Therapy is important. It's good to be honest with yourself. I think it's good to take care, like I said, taking care of yourself. If you are at a place where your professional life hasn't worked out, it's sort of gone down the drain, and you're not happy with that, just focus on yourself first. Focus on yourself, taking care of yourself. Like I said, failure is not the end. There's a lot of lessons to be learned from that. So just take the time to work on that, get yourself right mentally. As long as you're able to feed yourself, you're not starving, you're not, you know, you have a place to live. And if you don't, you can figure, you know, there's steps to take there. You will be fine if it doesn't work out, if it's gone down the wayside, and it's just take care of yourself first, and then you can rebuild the piece from there. It may take time. It's definitely taking time for me from some of my failures earlier. I'm still working through them and how I handle them in both my professional and personal life. But if, like I said, you're on the path, take care of yourself. Personal life matters more than professional life, even though this is a panel about professional development. Take care of yourself. That's, I guess, my last note here.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ethan, for joining us, for sharing your expertise, and for answering all of our questions. We really appreciate it. And thank you again for everyone who joined us today. Tonight, we will host our final Young Professionals event for the series and Young Professionals event for the year. And it will kick off a new style of programming for us. It's U Chicago Networking Night, where you'll get the chance to connect and talk with fellow alumni and friends of the university, as well as hear from Monica Felix, who is an alumna and also the current executive director of the Chicago Cultural Alliance. It's going to be a lot of fun, a great way to connect. If you're ever worried about networking and find it super awkward, you already have a first connection here because it'll be your U Chicago community. I'm going to drop a link in the chat right now to the event if you still want to register. It is tonight from 6:30 to 7. 6 to 7:30. Get that the right way. So please sign up and join us if you would like. As this event ends, you will see a survey about the program pop up. Please let us know how you think it went and any topics you would like us to cover in the future. We really use this as advice to help us help you. But just again, thank you, Ethan. I really appreciate you being here, and thank you to everyone who joined us. And we'll see you at the next one.
Thanks all. I really appreciate it. I'm thankful to you all.